Welcome to the Elevated Trader Podcast. I am Dr. Kristen Kidgel.
And I am Tracy Ball. Join us every week as we journey into becoming better traders.
We believe becoming better traders involves elevating our skill, our mindset, and our health. In each episode, we will discuss the current book we are exploring, and we invite you to join us on this journey.
Are you ready to elevate your trading, mindset, and health to the next level? Let's do this. Welcome back to part 2 of You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Welcome back.
Part 2. So in this part 2, it encompasses chapters 6, 7, 8, and 9. And really, 6, 7, 8, and 9, what it really comes down to is getting to know who you are and being comfortable with yourself in your own skin, right? So we start out with how to embrace your inner badass, right? And I just want to reiterate how cool I find Jen's writing. She's just so humorous, brings a ton of energy to this book. And I tell you, it is a quote bomb. Like it's just, it's just spewing quotes that I almost highlight the entire book as I'm going through. Oh, wow, that's a great quote. Wow, that's a great quote. So there's a lot of really good information in here, and it's really hard to just focus on one thing. But I really like the beginning of this chapter as we go into, she says, we invest everything we've got in believing that we're not good enough. And it starts out by, we arrive here as this perfect little bundle of joy. And if you remember at the beginning of the book, she talks about her brother throwing some stuff on the floor and then commentating about his little 2-year-old son, how perfect he bends over and picks up everything. Like it's just, his form is perfect. Everything about it is perfect. He hinges in the right location. His weight distribution is perfect. He's not straining his back. It's like, it's exactly the way that we try to do it. So we have all these instincts that we're born with, and then we go on this journey of life, learning how to hate ourselves, learning how to forget everything. And then at some point we reach a level where we're unhappy with where we're at, and we try to relearn all the things that we knew to begin with. I found that really profound. What were your thoughts?
It didn't stand out the first time I read it or listened to it, or both, because I'm doing both. Because it's something we watch children do that all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, where they do have this instinctual things to do things. And so do we, but we do take them for granted. And so it's just funny that she picked that thing, that example, to make a point that is really like a really big point. Like
profound.
You're saying.
Yeah, it's profound. It really is. There are some steps. At what point in your life, I'm just curious, at what point in your life did you realize that maybe you were starting to sway away from all of that? Or did you?
Oh, dear. Shoot, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look at these things, and I don't know if they're steps as much as like pointers that she gives out.
Yeah.
So I'd have to ask myself, when did I use these pointers? Or when did I learn about them? And when did I go, ooh, I probably should do that, you know? Don't reinvent the wheel.
Let's start with the first one. How appreciate how special you are.
Now, was she talking how special I am and unique that I am, or as humans? Because I kind of look at both with my background in anatomy. So I'm kind of like, we are so freaking unique, you guys. This is so cool. But then on top of it, I'm unique. There's not... Well, I had this joke the other day, is that I have a patient who swears that her younger sister is my doppelganger. And I didn't know what that word was until like 5 years ago, by the way. And I'm like, no way, I don't have a doppelganger. I am very special and unique. And we just had a good joke about it, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I honestly think that you have to do both. I don't know that you can appreciate who you are without appreciating the fact that the human race is so incredibly unique.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe you can.
Just the heartbeat and the cells and the organs and how they work. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So have you always appreciated yourself and how special you are, or was there a pivotal point where you recognized that needed to change?
I would have to say that I've had probably on average since young high self-esteem, only probably because of my mother. She was pretty verbally empowering. You know, you're a woman, you can do anything. You know, all these little tidbits Did I tell you she put me in T-ball at 5 and said I was telling everyone where to stand?
No, but I totally see
Yeah,
that.
see?
I can completely envision that. You know, it's interesting because we have two very different perspectives, right? And I love that you came from a supportive, nurturing background where you had that strong sense of self. I also had a really strong sense of self, but didn't come from that nurturing environment and went on the rest of my life trying to prove that I'm right, if that
Ooh,
makes sense. So I
interesting.
believed in myself, but I found that between media, society in general, my parents, all the little traumatic things that happened throughout my life all told me the opposite. And I kept trying to just prove, wait a minute, no, I am special. You need to listen to me. You need to believe me. You need to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself is really exhausting
Yeah.
and very hard to do, right? That takes a lot of perseverance, a lot of dedication because you keep getting cut down, you keep falling down and standing back up, right? So for you, two
Well,
very
you're expecting external things to help you along.
exactly, and that's the difference, right? You have this internal foundation that's been supported and nurtured, and anything around you that wants to tear that apart, it's very difficult to do. Where I didn't have that, so I am looking in, like I'm trying inwardly to make myself as strong as I possibly can, but it wasn't there as a child, that's for sure. Yeah,
Interesting.
definitely. All right, well, what about the second one? Drown yourself in affirmations. I know you do this one all the time. When did you
Oh,
start?
yeah. Oh. That's a good question. I think unknowingly they were probably around me. They were definitely on the walls in um, the chiropractic school, which I find interesting in retrospect. And now that I understand what they're supposed to do and what they're doing, like a neuroplasticity retrain, so to speak, um, I think it's really important because you and I are very hard on ourselves.
Mm,
And it's almost like the affirmations are the opposite of how hard we are on ourselves.
yeah. Well,
That internal battle.
that hardness on ourselves, it's calling, calling us out on it, right? So it's saying,
Yeah.
hey, wait a minute, you're being hard on yourself. Really? That's what the affirmations are doing. And I really, because I always thought affirmations were really foo-foo, and she even mentions that in the book. But
Mm-hmm.
understanding the science around it has been the pivotal point for me in buying into affirmations, and I totally get it. So if you are one of those individuals out there that is struggling with affirmations and understanding them or getting them to work or even committing to them, read up a little bit more on neuroplasticity because there is a science behind it. There is something that is physically happening inside the brain when you're doing these affirmations, and you might need to have some of that science to help back you with those affirmations to get on board because it does work.
Yeah, Joe Dispenza, I think, wraps it up pretty
Absolutely.
simply.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
What about do things that you love? Have you always been one that does that?
I think I realized I'm much happier when I have balance. And then what is that balance? Because I think that's very individualized. So I know that I need to be outdoors, and I know that I need to help people, and I know that I need to exercise, and I know that there's just,
Mm-hmm.
certain things that I like. So yeah, I think it's pretty important to move forward with that. And now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, the goal is really just to be happy right now. Like even on the way to the journey, and the goal is like, be happy
Oh,
now.
I totally agree. How many people do you know that live their whole life working? They don't have any external hobbies, they don't have any other interests, and then when they retire, they die.
I don't know how many I know right now, but I do recall, oh man, it's been a long time. It could have been like 20 years when my uncle retired from being a high school teacher and ended up being a high school guidance counselor. I mean, he was in the same school forever.
Mm-hmm.
And when okay, so here's what it is. They slip into a lot of depression
Mm-hmm.
amongst retiring if you don't have other things that you're really into.
And why do you think that is?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, just
Well, if you're not doing
lost what their, that was their job was the meaning of life for them, and all of a sudden they don't have that job anymore, and they're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, and I guess that's the difference, right? Is that external thing is once again being your identity and being who you are instead of recognizing who you are. And that's what this is all about, is knowing what you like, knowing who you are, committing to it, and letting all the external stuff go away. So,
and be okay with changing it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that in the beginning. I'm like, oh, I'm really into this and I really love this. But now I'm like, I'm being called, I'm being pulled,
Yeah.
I'm being whatever it is. There's something inside me literally that pulls me to this to improve what I'm already doing.
Right. Yeah, and we've talked about that
Whatever
before,
that is.
right? That, I've struggled with before, trying to find my purpose or find what I'm supposed to do, and going out there and looking for some, burning bush or cosmic thing to come down and say, hey, Tracy, you're supposed to be doing this. And, then I found out that you can just create your own purpose, right? And it can be the things that you enjoy. So find a replacement. I like this. Once aware of our thoughts and our behaviors, we're now able to choose the same or a different path, right? Or different thought. That's the power we have. Yet most of us have it, or hand it back. We hand that back. We hand that power back. We don't want it. We relinquish it. We don't embrace that power. We experience it like a hot potato, right? We just toss it away. Like here I have these thoughts, I have these behaviors. Now that I'm aware of it, I'm going to choose to do differently. Oh no, I don't want to do that. This is safe. Let's just stick with the thoughts we have. And
change.
Exactly, right? And I've heard this before. Jeremy said it many times before that, if you want a different life, think different thoughts, type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very, very powerful. So find a replacement to those thoughts. Deliberately find a replacement. So if you're telling yourself, I can't stand the way I look, or I'm ugly because I need to lose so many pounds. Start to focus on the things that you really like, and change that dialogue inside of you and say, you know what? There's just a lot of you to love. I love it. Yep. Whatever it might be, just something that makes you feel good. I don't know what they might be, but it's got to be something for yourself. Ditch the self-deprecating humor. Now, we talked a bit about this. This one was an eye-opener for me, because I completely get it. And the way she worded it was like, hey, stop talking about my friend like that. And I totally get that now, being on the receiving side of it. So listening to somebody else talk down about themselves or be humorous about themselves, I totally get it, because I've been there listening to people do that. I'm thinking, why are you being so down on yourself, right? It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not attractive, and it is really not helping you in the direction you really want to go, which is to be happy. Like, you're literally just creating even a moment of unhappiness. So,
well, and you don't need it to be funny. Okay, get a different shtick, as she puts it. Now, you are one of the people in my life that I find to be extremely fun, very humorous, and you don't utilize any of that kind of stuff. Not only that, but you don't even utilize the humor that puts down other people. So I love it, because you are just a natural, humorous, fun person. Where does that come from?
Oh, Lordy. I have absolutely no idea. And I didn't actually think that I was funny, but I think I just try to have fun, and maybe it comes across as humor.
Maybe.
Because I sure as hell cannot do a punchline of a joke. Like, I'll learn like little jokes, and I always screw them up. And I'll even memorize the joke and still screw up the punchline. So
but that's what makes you funny.
It is about joke telling.
part of that makes you funny.
Yeah, and I just will like break out and just like a dance move, and I can't dance. Yeah. And I sure as hell can't sing, so you don't want me singing a tune. I mean, I just, I think I sang for you for your birthday and recorded it.
I guess that's what makes you fun too, and adorable, is because you aren't afraid of what anybody thinks, and therefore you'll just do it. So you don't have to be perfect at it in order to do it, and that's what makes it so much. The energy comes through as loving, kind, fun, energetic, and it puts a smile on my face. I know that.
Yay. Okay, I'm gonna work harder on that.
I need to work harder on that, because I'm not.
Dance like nobody's watching. But it is freeing. Like, in Florida, we wear flip-flops a lot, and I always joke, How can you take life seriously when you wear shoes that make noise? Honestly, you know? So like those little things, and I just read that or heard that somewhere, and I'm like, that's so true. So almost every time I'm walking around, yeah, try to wear flip-flops in church or
That's
something.
hilarious. That's
In a seminar. Done that. That's stupid. Bad move. Don't do that. Take them off and walk out of the room to go bathroom or something.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right, so then the next one is let the love in. I mean, thank you. Just say thank you. Accept it, receive it, open up to it, and be okay with it, right? The most powerful words in the world to overcome negative self-talk. And then not only that, and I've started recognizing this from this book. So my life's changing a little bit because I never looked at exercising or eating right or any of those things as an act of self-love. I looked at them as healthy choices, but not an act of self-love. And there's a switch that's being changed in my mind right now. And it's going from the things that I'm doing, the things that I'm ingesting, the things that I'm watching, the things that I'm listening to, the things that I'm doing as an act of self-love. So one of the things that I'm trying to work on is being more confident in my self-love and loving myself, because I am very, very hard on myself. You know that. And I want to be there. So that's one of the switches that has happened in my brain just from reading this book. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it is. Don't compare yourself to others. How huge is this? Now, if you go back to the first point, which is all of us are unique and different, and we all have our own value. We are all different. We might have similar traits as other people. We're just packaged differently. And that's the cool thing, right? It's a little bit of this. It's like a homemade sub sandwich. Every single time you go, it's made differently and it's not the same. So even though it might be a ham and Swiss sandwich, it might be made slightly different. And therefore we are all different. So why are we comparing ourselves to each other? If none of us are exactly the same, why are we comparing ourselves to each other?
I think we just have to be careful on, am I comparing myself to that person because that really just puts you down, or do they have something that you want?
Exactly.
Do they have, so that's okay, because we know that we need to surround ourselves and follow and, read about or whatever. That person over there is doing XYZ. I want XYZ in my life. What did they do? Okay, I'm going to go after that versus like, I don't have those things, and, focusing on the lack.
That is a great point, and I completely agree. There is a difference in perspective, right? So absolutely.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
So just catch yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Oh, one of the things that stood out,
What's that?
And I think it's the next part. Oh, I might be off a little bit, but forgiving yourself.
That's the next one.
And she's like, is it?
Yeah.
Because she's like, listen, you screw up in the past. You have screwed up in the past, and you're going to screw up again. Like, you have to forgive yourself,
Yeah.
So I find that really big. It's not easy.
And forgiveness is a hard thing. It really is. But I think that people think that forgiveness is releasing someone from accountability, and it's not. It's taking accountability for how you feel, right? And it's actually relinquishing their control. Like if it's in something to do with trauma or anything like that, forgiving yourself, letting things go, even forgiving other people, it frees you. It frees you from the bondage of whatever it is you did, whatever it is somebody did to you, whatever it might be. It frees you to move forward. It can't be changed. And I think there needs to be a switch or a change in the way that we understand forgiveness, because I don't think it has anything to do with the other individual or the other thing. Does that make sense?
So there's a saying like, you need to forgive, but you don't have to forget.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I think really needs to be known is that lack of forgiveness creates a negative emotion within you. And what we know about negative emotions now create negative energies within you. And then what we also know, and when I say no, I'm like, other people are studying this. It's like not new information. So those negative emotions you are carrying around, that other person probably has no idea that other situation is already gone, like whatever. Like if you're still sitting there in those negative emotions, then they are festering. And then you usually hear, you not forgiving is you drinking the poison. And that never really made sense to me until it was all kind of put together, that those negative feelings and stuff that you're constantly bringing up are affecting your immune system, your mental state, just all your relationships. I mean, they're just like, you're literally seething still some of that stuff. So
It's toxic.
yeah. And then it can lead to triggers and stuff. So if you're having situations where you're really stuck on them, then you need to identify them and then work through them. And there's obviously steps for that too. So
What are one of the ways that you go about forgiving?
Well, sometimes let's see here. For some reason, I was going down a judgmental thing. Like, it's almost like judgmental on yourself or judgmental on the other person. And then I can't stand when people are judgmental. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that is a judgmental thing that you're doing. And, we don't do that, as in the proverbial me and I. So it's just, I guess it's catching your self-reflection and then changing the thought. It could have just been a pattern or something like that.
What about writing it down?
That works for some people. Like one of the things I kind of like is like writing stuff down and then burning it. There's something a little freeing in that.
Yeah.
I've done that.
They say that writing things down actually takes it out of your brain. It helps your brain forget. It says, hey, I don't have to worry about this. It's written down somewhere. I don't need to worry about it anymore. And you can focus on thinking about other things. And at least that's the way I interpret it. And so I find that writing things down gets it out of my brain. It gets it physically outside of my body. I can visualize it that way. And then, going ahead and burning it. Just says, hey, it's gone. Goodbye. Catch you later. Right? So some great points. Absolutely. Now, basically the rest of this stuff is all, we have gifts. We all have value. What's your thought on that? We all have value. And
you mean like value as in a purpose, reason you're around, uniqueness? Yeah.
Reason you're around. But the way I don't know if you remember the way she described it in the book, talks about, we all have gifts, and you as a gift giver, have you ever been really super excited? Probably more excited than the person receiving to give your gift.
She's like, oh, come on, just give it to me. I'll open it for you. I definitely have an issue with, like, I have a gift and I gave a birthday gift 2 days early just recently. And then I have another birthday gift for somebody else that I made. And that birthday's not for like 5 weeks. And so bad do I want to give him this gift. So it is really, really fun to give gifts. I think where people struggle is they just don't know what their gift is. And that's a lot of self-reflection. Yeah. And your gift can change, it can evolve. And so what is your gift right now? Like, what do people ask people that, that you surround yourself with?
So how to get clearer on who you are and what your calling is. So there's a few things. I like this. Be the alien. So come at yourself with fresh new eyes and a new perspective. I think that's a really cool way of looking at it, right? Always try and visualize yourself as if it's for the first time ever. And that might give you some clarity. Take the first right step. So most answers reveal themselves through doing, not thinking. And I thought that was very profound. Yeah. Right? Do your best wherever you're at. And then this leads back to, it reminds me of the quote that you can't get good at something unless you're prepared to be bad at it first. Yeah. And I think that's extremely profound. So you need to just start, and you'll figure out what you're good at by doing, right? And figuring out where those limitations are. But you have to be willing to be bad at something in order to be good at it.
Yeah, it's that whole black and white thing. You don't know darkness for light.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? If it's already working, don't bother. So use what other people are doing as a map, but you don't need to necessarily duplicate what other people are doing. We don't need another Tony Robbins in the world. We need another Kristen Kitchell in the world, or another Tracy-Lynn Ball in the world, or we need our own selves elevated to the best that we can be.
True, right? That.
not clones of
True
other
that.
people. Yeah. And then don't get caught up in the thunderbolt hype. So the one grand calling, remember the burning bush, the existence that I was waiting for. Don't get caught up in that, because you know what? Unless you're Moses, it doesn't exist. So that's
I mean,
pretty
I can
much
go out back and light
where
something
we're
on
at.
fire. Send you a video.
It's all right.
Here's your sign, Tracy. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Then, listen to your intuition. And this is another one that I think goes back to being young and then going on a path of learning how to dislike ourselves, because I used to be extremely intuitive, and I am trying to get a lot more in touch with that intuitiveness now. I went through life listening to people all around me tell me how idealistic I was. I'm idealistic. And they just kept stuffing all that intuition, all that gut feeling, all that natural, like I said, instinct down. And I've allowed that to happen, and I've got to let it out again, because I do remember being extremely intuitive, just knowing the right thing to do at the right time, and just having that really good connection with myself and knowing what was important.
Yeah. And
right?
when not to do something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think it's definitely a gift that's strong, and it definitely needs to be practiced and fed, because it's just, like anything else, the more you do it, I think the better you get. So, yeah, and that we were born with it, right? So we weren't raised with it. Not if you're raised with it, a little different, right? But yeah, I didn't really teach my son too much about it, but I've definitely had lots of long conversations with my daughter about it. And so I can kind of see that she, is aware. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. All right, next one, follow your fantasies. I think writing the eulogy really nails this one. It really does.
Oof, yeah, those are pretty big things. So I don't know about your one that you wrote, but mine, the second time I was told to write one by a coach, was write it as if you died right now. And what would God say? What would your spouse say? What would your kids say? What would your coworker say? What would your friends say? And then write it as if all your dreams came true. And then what would all those people say? Because it's totally different.
Right.
There's that weird gap. Well, there's a gap for me, because so when I wrote mine, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many of these things that are already existing. I have to be super appreciative of that. And I was just, my heart was filled, right? But then there's this gap. And so now it's risk taking, it's pushing yourself, it's surrounding yourself with the right people. It's just all those things to get to those last little pieces.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just keep in mind that, because I struggled with that as well. Writing my eulogy right now would be very easy for me to do. Writing the eulogy with all my dreams coming true, that's a lot more difficult. And I want to just reassure people that your dreams can change, and they will grow as you change and grow. So write your eulogy to the best of your ability, and it may be very little steps, very tiny baby steps that you need to take right now of who you can envision in the future for yourself. But this is a continuing process, once a year, once every couple years, and it'll change and evolve over time as you see the growth. So don't get caught up once again with that thunderbolt hype, because it's not a one and done kind of thing. And this again, the whole thing ends off with love yourself, right? That's what's important.
Yeah.
And that's the holy grail of happiness, right? Is to love yourself.
She reiterated it very often. Self-love.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, self-love. So join us next time as we dive into part 3.
Thank you for joining us today. For more information about the show, as well as our list of current reads, check us out at www.theelevatedtrader.com.
Remember to subscribe and share if you found value in today's episode. See you next week.